Vibhu, it's really a pleasure to have you on the call here. And, the many years of industry experience you bring, not just, from the financial services sector, but also prior to that as well. I think we want to kind of start the conversation broad and then kind of narrow in on a few things. So, one of the things that we want to do with Coffee Conversations is just talk about different roles in the financial services industry in insurance companies. So, with responsibility for the finance function at Pacific Life, maybe start by just telling us a little bit about what that means, what that looks like. What does it look like when your function is performing well? And how do you make that happen as a leader?
Sure. I appreciate it. And, let me start. I often, share with people I'm the CFO at Pacific Life. And I always share that in many ways, I'm the chief stewardship officer. And what that means is, uh, my role is really to ensure that the commitments that we've made to our customers over the last, we've been around for 158 years. But the promises that we've made and the promises that we made today, the promises we'll make tomorrow, that we can fulfill and honor those promises. So that in many ways creates that clarity of what we're trying to do each and every day. So when you then sit back and look at the function, right? You have certainly an accounting and reporting function because we have to, prepare statutory financial statements and file them with the various regulatory authorities throughout, both in the U.S. and Pacific Life was a global enterprise, so in other jurisdictions. Um, that's an important part. We do the same thing on a GAAP basis for the various stakeholders because we have debt that is out in the capital markets, so they're looking for GAAP financials. So we do that. We just implemented LDTI, which is changing the accounting framework for the life insurance industry after 40 years. So that was a big time there. We then turn around and we've been working on an economic type model. So what's an economic balance sheet and an economic set of financial statements? So we're working on that. So really, almost if you think about three sort of bases of financials. So that's one part. Because people want to know that the company you're doing business with, well regulated, has the capital, has quality financials, which they're putting their trust in when they're making a decision to go with company A or B or C. Obviously, the other part you get into is the tax component. That tax reports up. You file a variety of different taxes, premium tax, income tax, state level, federal level taxes in other countries. So that's clearly a part there. Another part of it is capital management, ensuring you have the right capital, whether it's statutory capital, economic capital, you have that, and comparing it to the various measures, whether it's RBC or you're in other jurisdictions, BSCR, for example, to Bermuda. So capital, as I tell my business colleagues, you worry about writing good, profitable business. I'll make sure I got the capital that you can write that business and get the appropriate returns. You have a treasury function. Treasury to ensure both just the simple bank accounts for collecting money and paying money, but at the same time looking at the different credit arrangements we have, credit revolvers, because very important in our industry is to have liquidity, right? Look at some of the banks that have failed. What was the issue? They had a run on the bank, didn't have liquidity. We have plenty of liquidity. We do a lot of tests on that to have liquidity. We have a business insights team. Some people, FP&A, business insights, as I always share with that team. You're seeing a lot of data. Tell me what the data tells me. Tell me how that helps from a business perspective. What trends are we seeing? What are we seeing with competitors? So certainly have that team. Internal audit. Internal audit reports to the audit committee, but I sort of have oversight of that team. We have four businesses, and each of those businesses have a CFO. So those CFOs spend time with their business leaders as well as with me. And then we have a team that's focusing on some of the transformation work that we're doing. So that it encompasses a good chunk. And of course, the last one, which rolls into here is actuarial. So we have all the actuarial components with obviously the pricing actuaries are sitting with the businesses, but when we think of the actual community, and then of course the different other elements of actuarial, whether it's valuation, modeling, assumptions, just to give a handful. So that gives us sort of the holistic scope of that, which is why it makes my job really a fun job. Get to do a lot of different things. And your question on how do you make it all happen? Very easy. You got to really have a really good team. And it is always really important to have a really good team of passionate leaders, and you're wanting to get different thoughts and viewpoints. And if you have that really good team, it makes the job a lot easier. If you don't have that good team, it makes the job harder. So it's always been a premise of mine from quite a while. Long answer to your simple question.
No, I really, really appreciated it because, when I was practicing as an actuary, supported CFOs. And so like was hearing a lot of stuff that brought back some memories from my own career. But I'm also impressed that you were able to just rattle off the functions, because I was sort of like doing the org chart in my head. And I'm like, man, that is a lot of stuff to keep straight. And so maybe the question that I want to ask from there is, we've got a view of what you're doing now, what you kind of have responsibility and scope for. Kind of want to take it back and help us understand how you got there. So I know you started your career in public accounting. Want you to kind of share that journey from public accounting to leading finance functions in the insurance business.
Yeah, if I go back, I graduated college in 1987. I always have fun. I graduated from SMU, and those of you that are familiar with that, we invented the NIL. I know the NIL is big time now, but we did it back then. We got in trouble, lost our football teams. I was the last graduating class with the football program, but that's my tagline. We were so good that ESPN even did a 30 for 30 on us. But
I've watched it.
It's pretty good. And I started public accounting, and I thought when I started, that's where I'd end up. I'd retire in public accounting, and I spent 17 years there. I was a partner, an audit partner there. I've served insurance clients, small, medium, big, U.S., global, PNC, life, reinsurer. So I got a chance to see all of them, and I really learned a lot, and I got to see a lot of what happened to clients, but I also got bored at it because in many ways, for me, public accounting was always looking backwards. I was thinking about last year. Management was thinking about the year ahead. And so I had an opportunity to be a CFO at one of my clients, and I joined them, and that really changed the trajectory for my career. And I've been in a CFO or similar executive roles for now 22 years. And what I tell people is don't get caught up into the function per se, meaning a CFO is what I'm seeking. Figure out how do you put yourself in a role that allows you to influence the business. And there's many roles that you can have to influence the business. You can be the chief risk officer. You can influence the business. You can be the chief. You can run a business, one of the business divisions. You can influence the business, and because it's really important when you come around the table at the C-suite table. What's really important at the C-suite table is you take your middle initial off. So it's not the CFO, it's the CX blank O that's at the table. And the part that I really enjoy is the business side. And that just comes with time and experience and a mindset. And so that's what I would, be my counseling to people. Don't get, people get hung up. I want to be CFO. And I ask, well, why do you want to be CFO? And they don't really have a good answer. And if you start with focus on how you can influence the business, let whatever role and path that creates for you get there.
I can appreciate that as someone who's become a bit of a generalist in my own career. But you said something to me that was really interesting, and I think has been my own tension with accountants in the earlier parts of my career, with the idea of sort of looking backward versus looking forward. That's a really keen insight. Um, what was that transition like for you, moving from leading an audit practice to now leading finance functions? What parts of your audit background kind of put you in a position of strength to transition, and what parts maybe were a little bit more, took a little bit more work to adjust to
Sure,
and transition through?
sure. The easier parts, I led large teams, leading large teams. That was an easy switch. I knew the industry. I knew the industry. I actually learned a lot more about the industry, but that just comes with time and experience. So it wasn't like it was new, from there. Um, Risk. When you think about audit, you're thinking about risks, and so that was similar. Although the difference now is I'm looking at risk on a go forward basis and much more modeling and thinking about risk, what could be based on a variety of different scenarios, situations, and products and investment classes on what that could look like, and financial and operational risk. I think the part that's probably was the biggest change was when you're thinking about in the role that I sit today. When you're thinking about when you're in a corporate side, you're thinking about what the future could be. So you're thinking much more about strategy and vision and culture, and you're having to be a key part to influence and shape that. You're looking at what it could be, the challenges of a new product or new distribution. Those are not things that you're thinking about on the audit side, because remember, it's already happened. So then it's kind of like, okay, I got to follow a set of principles, a process, and as long as I follow the principles and process, I can accomplish what I'm looking to do. Versus, it's much more broad, and you're dealing with the gray, and you're dealing with the things that you say, you have to then actually deliver on it, right? Audit is easy. You're an armchair quarterback. I know you did it. Let me tell you how I thought you did. Now, if I come up with an idea or strategy, I got to see that through fruition, and some of those work and some of them don't. That's probably was the biggest change in my mind.
No, that's really interesting. I guess I never would have thought of that as a significant point of transition. I guess continuing from there, what allowed you to make the transition and find increasing levels of success to continue to excel in these finance leadership roles, where now you're sort of positioned to have to look forward instead of looking backwards?
Yeah, you have to take the time. I think this is what's really important is you got to constantly have to be learning. And I know everybody says that, hey, we're a learning culture. You got to be learning. Yeah, okay, you got to do that. But what's really important is really take the time to learn the business. Why does somebody want to do business with Pacific Life? Why do they want to buy the product that we have to offer? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Why do they want to buy an annuity? Why do they want to buy a group dental and vision? Why do they want to buy a life product? Why do they want to do a pension risk transfer? Why? And if you start understanding and looking from that perspective, that starts to give you the much broader business instead of often we get so myopic that we're focused on, okay, I got to do the valuation here. Now I know EM22 is coming up. And so how do I think about that? And let me look at I'm going to use profit to do some of the scenario work and like, okay, now you want to step back and actually look at why I even care about this stuff. What will that impact do to my capital? What will that therefore due to my pricing? And if I look at my capital, my pricing, do I need to change my products? How I shape and design my product? Does that mean I need to do something with ALM because how the assets that support that products are going to be factored in? So when you start thinking about all those things, but you can't do that unless you understand, why do I even sell that product? So I always tell people, understand the business, and people are happy to share. Go sit down with the business leader. Tell me the business. Happy to share that with you. So I've always taken the effort, time and effort to truly understand the business, because I always tell people you gotta feel it. You gotta feel it. If you take sports, look at this, the really good sports, the athletes, they feel it. They feel it. And I think we have to do the same thing, regardless of whether you're an actuary or a finance person or an accounting person or a risk person or a technology person. You really have to feel it and understand it. You got to make the effort to get there.
No, I think that's really really critical insight for our group here, especially most of the actuaries on the call here. It's easy to get caught up in how do I do my job and
Right.
lose sight of like why does my job matter.
Right.
In the ability to kind of tether yourself to why does my job matter, um, allows you sort of over time to become a role agnostic. You might be able to do that as a pricing leader. You might be able to do that as a
Right.
product leader. You might be able to do that as an underwriting leader. And so I'm really glad that you kind of brought that up, because a lot of us, we get so focused on, I'm really good at pricing. I'm really good at reserving. I spent all these years taking these exams, and you kind of get caught up in that science of what you're doing. Um, as opposed to kind of stepping back and looking and saying, hey, the science is a tool, the methods are a tool, the technologies are a tool. There's a purpose I'm trying to serve here. Um, and so that insight is really resonant with me personally. Um, One of the questions that I'd be curious to get your, as you kind of reflect on your career as a finance leader, or it could be as an audit practice leader, when you think about how you've best been able to create value as a leader for your teams, as a leader for the businesses that you've served, for the customers that benefit from those businesses, like what's been your best, what's been the skill or the attribute that's allowed you to create value best for those stakeholders, whether it's been your teams or customers? And when you think back on your career, what's kind of been the most significant win where you're like, oh, that was, I'm really glad we were able to get that done?
I think that was, a multifaceted question. To me, what's really important is you have to have a knowledge base, and you have to have an approach that people want to hear you out, because I've seen people, they're the smartest people, 10 times smarter than I am. They just can't translate that into actions that people can understand to execute. So you have to take complex issues, you have to make it in a simple way, you have to influence people to listen to your ideas and shape those ideas to make a difference. And I think that just comes with your willingness to say make the complex simple, and um, getting people to listen to you. And look, I don't expect every one of my ideas and viewpoints is acted on. I just want to have that part of the evaluation and debate, and you learn stuff from that perspective. So, way for me, my focus has been really twofold. One is, if you want to call the win, I've had a pretty good track record of developing teams. I've had some very good teams over my career. So I'm very focused on building teams and getting the right individuals and spending time with individuals to help them grow, mature, and be better, and give feedback. And I think the people that work with me know that I truly care for them and help them to get better. So that's the first and foremost, because I've always taken the analogy from a sports angle. You probably get a lot of sports references from me, but if you think of most sports teams, they have a salary cap. Okay, I got a salary cap. Um, and even when the team wins the Super Bowl or World Series or NBA championship, they come back the next year with a different team because they're always looking to be better. So I try to do that and build that team, and a team that I can step back as a coach and help in many ways, you're kind of like the Zen master. You're just helping to shape, to ensure the team can execute, but you're not out there playing each time because the team has to do it. So that's one, is focusing on team. The second part is the insights. People will only reach out to you if you have something to offer. So I always share this with my colleagues. If you come to a meeting and you got nothing to say, why are you coming to the meeting? I always go, well, they want to listen, and you can read the materials. You don't need to go, you know. So I've always taken a viewpoint that what can I offer to help make something better?
How do you, there's like a couple of places that I want to go with that. One,
Sure.
love the Phil Jackson references, because I think,
Yep.
especially as we have a lot of folks on this call that might be stepping into leadership roles where they're dealing with folks that are, proven executors and really talented, ego gets involved, right?
Sure.
And people want to be good at what they do. They want to be recognized. People have different motivations. And so, I really like this reference of, kind of being the coach. You're not out there, but your job is to get the team to perform. Um, I'll start here. Like, what's kind of been the most valuable tools that you've been able to use to be able to assemble some of those teams and get some hard stuff done? I'll start with that question.
Look, you kind of have, when you take a new role, I tell people you got a year. After a year, you're the problem. So in your first year, you got to make sure you got the team. And if you don't have the team, change it. Change it. And I empower my teams to change it. And I challenge them. Look, Johnny or Susie, everybody's everybody's a good person. They may not be in the right role or the right level.
Right.
And you're better off making that change and to get individuals that you believe can do that. And think about it. No one ever comes and says, you know what, Babu, I'm quitting on you because you have clearly communicated where we're going. You clearly communicate the expectations. You spend time developing me, helping me be a better person, a better leader. I love the company that we work at. I feel I'm fairly compensated, but I'm quitting on you. Right? No one, when you think about when people leave organizations, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, they're leaving their boss. They're not leaving. They'll say, "Yeah, I'm leaving." They're leaving their boss, and there's a reason for that, right? So if you start with that premise of helping people and getting the helping individuals be better, you will find that you surround yourself with people that are really good, and then people see that, right? It's that. Take Phil Jackson, right? I mean, Phil Jackson people didn't sit there and go, if I'm playing for Phil Jackson, I'll be at the top of my game. I don't say it, but I think people probably know that if they're working with me on my team, they got to be pretty top at their game. And they put more pressure on themselves than I put on them because they want to do well. And they don't do it well for me, they do it well for the team. And I think that's an important part. And I think when you think about new leaders, new managers, new leaders, biggest issue they have is they're not willing to make the hard call. If someone is not the right fit for that team, go somewhere else. I had somebody on my team once that they were telling me all these things and all this stuff. I just said, look, hey, maybe you're on the wrong team. I said, look, I'm gonna put a winning team on the court. I hope you're part of it, but if you're not, great, go be successful somewhere else. It won't hurt my feelings. And then suddenly, like, well, no, actually, I kind of want to be on the team, And it's like, hey, great, but but the mupping around about it, and that's simple. That's I think the hardest part. People struggle, and by the way, I struggled. No one wakes up, and says, I can't wait till Monday because I'm going to fire someone. I mean, I have sleepless nights before that happens. I don't look forward to it. But as a leader, if you're going to have a team, you got to do that. It's no different than, again, sports analogies. it's hard to make the cut. When you're at the NFL, getting cut, I mean, you're cutting some of the really good people. I mean, they're the best of the best, and you still have to make a cut. Okay, same thing here.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And then I want to touch on your second point around insights, and this idea of like, why go to the meeting if if you don't have anything to say or anything to contribute? And so sure, while we can learn from being in the meeting and there's value to kind of being in the room and hearing the conversation, the being able to contribute insights definitely, puts people, on folks' radar. What advice do you have for folks? I know you talked a little bit about learning the business, but either kind of expanding on that, or if there's something else that folks can do to prepare themselves to be able to contribute insights at any table that they're called to.
Well, look, take the actuarial community. There's a lot of folks on this call are from the actuarial community. Vast amount of data, right? Taking a bunch of data and putting it into a report, that's not insights. That's just giving me a bunch of data in a report. Telling me what that data is saying, and then giving me some advice to, should I stay the course that I've taken? Should I change the course? Right? That's all what I'm trying to figure out. So you go look at all this mortality data and you sit there and go, okay, do we think we have some mortality improvements coming? Yay, nay. Do we still have COVID hangover? Yay, nay. What do we think about GLP-1? Should I? And so this data, and all I'm trying to get to is, based on that data, two things. One, how should I change my underwriting? Should I give credit or not? And then from evaluation, should I take credit or not? I want your input. And I want that input based on, hey, this is the work analysis we've done. Look, I'll do my little actuarial joke here for a minute. There's only two jobs that you can be wrong every day, so I have a job tomorrow. Doing the weather or being an actuary, right? And at the end of the day, because you're looking at historical information and you're based on that, thinking about what the future is, that's okay. I don't have problems saying, look, we think there's a 5% chance or a 95% chance, but I want to hear that. And I think that often I find, if I think of some of the functions, some of the actuarial professionals, they have vast amount of data, vast amount of insights. Their ability to take that and translate it and communicate it is sometimes where the struggle is. And I would say, if you're one of those that struggle with it, practice it, because you have an audience, you have the information, and people want to hear from you. What more could you ask for?
Maybe some thoughts there, and especially since you have the actuarial community, under your purview at Pac Life, what are some ways you think folks can practice delivering those insights to folks? What does that practically look like for people?
So I did a call with one of my leaders the other day, because we have a audit committee meeting coming up next week, and they're presenting, and I said, practice with me. So they gave me the practice, and I gave them some feedback. Hey, you might think about phrasing it this way. Oh, by the way, you forgot about this. Or think about it. This is the question they might ask you while you're speaking, so be ready. So some of it's public speaking is practicing at home, practicing with a colleague. I'm happy to listen to people, because you know why? Someone did that for me. In my younger days, I got to do that. And you get it with practice, and you figure out different ways to articulate it. And that's a good thing. So I wouldn't be afraid of that. Go do it. But you have to, again, be willing to take the time and effort. And for some people, it might be just taking good old fashioned public speaking, classes. If your company doesn't offer it, then there's a lot of organizations out there to do it. And my guess today, with probably AI, you could probably read into an AI script, and they probably come back and give you the feedback.
No, that's very useful advice here. I think I'll ask one more question before we open it up for general Q&A. as sort of like you said, the chief stewardship officer, right? You're kind of responsible for the financial stewardship of the organization that you are a leader at. What are some trends that you're paying attention to, um, not only for your company, but in the insurance industry and financial services industry broadly that you think actuaries should be paying attention to as well?
So if I'm going to start industry wide, and I'll narrow it down. So
Sure.
look, if you take this industry over the last call it 10 years, the influx of private equity into this industry, and private equity has come in quite strong. They have, as a result, created a lot of dominance in the asset accumulation space. So think about products that create more asset accumulation. So annuities is a great example, and you're seeing some of this very heavily market, shares. I mean, look at some of the companies, 10 years ago did nothing, and now they're doing 40 billion. So just understanding that and what that means from a product development, product life cycle, product pricing. And now I get the more specifics. Okay, what are some elements of pricing, right? One of the elements is what's the spread that I need to earn in order to give the rate, the crediting rate on it. Well, okay, now let me understand the spread. In order to get that spread, what's the level of risk, asset risk I need to take? Am I going into lower rated securities which are more illiquid, which if you've been just watching the news over the last few weeks with the whole area of private credit and some of the institutions that have had some issues, so you start to think about that. So when I think about, at a macro level, it's understanding who the players have been and how that landscape has changed from there. I think understanding the asset side of the equation, because I think the asset composition at life insurers has absolutely changed over the last 10, 15 years, and even maybe the last 5 years. And just understanding what that is and how that plays into both capital, how that plays into spreads if you're doing spread type products, how you need to think about that from ALM, because you're seeing as an industry, especially those on the annuity side, much shorter durations than you used to see. Because we've now gone from less of an income type annuity to more of a, I'm just gonna, but it's almost like a CD version. A bank would do a CD, an insurance company would do a 3 or 5 or 7 year MIGAs, and you're seeing the influx of that. I think it's understanding some of the hedging, because you're seeing a lot more products that have buffers, floors and caps, and how that plays in. And then as you get to the life side, certainly GLP-1 and what that means. Because I can tell you, I've heard GLP-1's fantastic, and I've seen the opposite. Someone may start out on GLP-1 drug and get underwritten for life insurance, and then 2 years later decide to get off it. And whatever benefits they got, it just got reversed, and even in a worse way. So those are decisions to make, but those are things that I'm sort of thinking about, looking at, and how to think about it from a capital perspective, how to think about it from a risk perspective, and ultimately as you're doing your business and financial plans, how to factor that in. And the last one, it's kind of emerging, but trying to figure out how AI will play into this space.
Do you have any particular thoughts on that, or have you formed opinions on what AI means for one, either how your finance teams do their work or anything at all?
Well, so I look at AI a couple different ways. First of all, I think if some organizations that take AI and say we're going to be an AI-led organization, I still view at least our organization, Pacific Life, we're a people-led organization. And AI is there to supplement and help influence and help people do their job easier, help them be more efficient. And as we continue to grow, I don't need to go hire 10 people every time we grow. Maybe I only hire 5 people. That's a different approach than others you're seeing, like Some of the tech companies, they're doing massive layoffs because AI is basically replacing those jobs. I think today you're seeing AI, at least in this industry, much more from a customer service perspective, ways that I can improve and enhance the customer service. Um, I I think it's early days, but I absolutely see it within the actuarial community, and we have some teams that are working to see where that can be. Because what do you have? Data, models. Where does AI play well with? Data and models. And so I think there's a there. I think it's everybody's trying to figure that out right now. So I think it's early days, but that's where if I was given this community, I'd be sure looking at how to use some of the large language models to help on the actual models and what can I do to make my job and the job of teams easier using that technology. Underwriting is the other area where I can see AI coming into play.
Okay. Okay. Well, Vibhu, we appreciate your response to kind of the prepared remarks. I want to open it up for Q&A from the audience. So either feel free to drop questions in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. And once we see the hand, and I'll call it a name that I see, and you can feel free to hop off mute and ask your question. And if I don't see hands, I'll just ask questions myself.
Okay.
All right, I'm not seeing one yet. So in the meantime,
I see something in the chat.
Oh, okay. How excited
are you about PL coming to Charlotte? Well, quite excited. It's something that I've been working on for a few years with my HR colleagues, and we really felt we wanted a meaningful hub in the Eastern Seaboard. Obviously, Pacific Life headquartered in Newport Beach. That is our main office. We have a good sized presence in Omaha, and we didn't have something in the East, and did a lot of work and landed on Charlotte. It is really our first office that we're opening purely from a talent perspective. It is a talent play. We think there's a lot of talent in the region, and there's a lot of talent in the Eastern Seaboard. And we think as an organization, people are attracted to us. Not everybody wants to move and live in 70-degree temperature year round with the Pacific Ocean behind you. Some people do like the stormy and weather winters and all that good stuff. But that Charlotte is there. So we're excited. We're going to have opening the doors. We're already hiring people. Gotten great response on that. We'll have a physical office on June 1st of this year. So excited about that.
Fantastic. I see. I think Jeff has got a question.
Hey, Vibhu, my question to you, I went and visited your LinkedIn, and the breadth of your experience is amazing. What excited you about the opportunity to come and join the Pacific Life team 4 years ago almost?
Few things. One, the brand. I mean, it's a very strong brand reputation. The culture of the company, very well regarded. And Daryl Button, our CEO. I'd known Daryl going back to when I was at Zurich Insurance working in Switzerland. Which, by the way, I see one of my former colleagues, Fred Ramos, on the screen. Fred and I used to work together at Zurich, and both actually our families lived in Zurich. So, Fred, how are you? And I'd met Daryl. He was at another company when we were both in Europe, so I knew him. But just when I think about Pacific Life, it's a modern mutual. And my fear was going to be at a mutual, which is a sleepy mutual, and Pacific Life's not that. And just looking at the journey that Daryl, who was a previous CFO, what he was thinking about, and it really attracted what I wanted to do. And he gave me the opportunity not only just to be the CFO, but to truly be what I think is a modern CFO today, which is one that is very involved in the business. And that really hit home. If he had just said, "Hey, I just want somebody to close the books and talk to me every quarter," I wouldn't have taken the job.
Love it. I see Molly and then Fred.
And I know
I'm
Molly
Molly.
too. Hi, Molly.
Good to see you. My question for you is, what's a habit or belief that you thought was working in your favor early on that actually ended up getting in your way?
That ended up, say one minute,
That
ended
ended
up
up getting in your way.
getting in my way. Oh, I know what. When I was in my younger days, I was very impatient. And so I was always ready to go. I want to do something, the next thing, and the next thing, and always trying to figure out. And in retrospect, sometimes that can rub people the wrong way because how, and I mean, I see how it rubs me the wrong way. It's like you just hired somebody 6 months later and like, okay, I'm ready for my next promotion. I'm like, you haven't done anything, for 6 months, you're still learning stuff. And so if I were to go backwards, I would say that's one. And I think the other one that I really have changed over my career is moving from focusing on me to focusing on the team. And I think maybe that just comes from as you progress, you like focus on team. That could be it. But I think focusing on team, I don't think I appreciated the team part if I were to go back 30 years ago. Because I was so hung up on me trying to, climb the ladder.
Yeah, I appreciate
Good question.
that. Fred.
Thanks. Hey, Vibhu, good seeing you again.
Likewise, Fred.
Back to the earlier question and your remarks about kind of expanding your depth and breadth and maybe not getting yourself pigeonholed into a silo. Maybe could you share your perspective and what you thought you learned from your international assignment when in fact we worked together at Zurich? I mean, you not only were at the Zurich parent company, you also had a chance to be CEO at one of the divisions. So, I mean, you went beyond, quote unquote, your comfort zone. Maybe if you can share your perspective on what that experience across the pond, I think, did for you and will do maybe for others.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And just for everybody's benefit, I spent the first 4 years as CFO for Zurich in the U.S. and North America, so U.S. and Canada. And then the group asked me to move to Switzerland to take on. I was the number 2 finance officer globally in Zurich, which was a treat because I got to see, I traveled the world and saw a lot of the world, saw how we sell products in a lot of different markets uh, from Asia to South America to Europe to Africa to, of course, North America. I knew very well. So it really was a learning opportunity. And then when I got the chance to move to London from Zurich to be the CEO of that business, really cool. And at the end of the day, if you start with if you have the basic foundational elements and you have the mindset of learning and knowing that people are putting you in roles, they don't want you to fail, they want you to succeed and are willing to help you succeed, and you're willing to put the effort to learn as well, you can do different roles. And so I've always taken a viewpoint of yeah, when I went from Chicago or Schaumburg, which is a suburb of Chicago, to Zurich, I was like, this is how you do business in Argentina. I've never even heard of, or I remember with Brazil, it's like, what, you have ATM insurance, so if you get mugged within 10 minutes of getting cash out, there's coverage for that. Wow, never. You mean you buy insurance from a bank? I would never buy bank insurance from a bank. But that's how Mark was distributed, and you learned that. That was okay. back to trying to understand the business and why. So, not being afraid to try different things um, and I've taken that to heart with the actuarial team at Pacific Life. I want people to do different things. I want people to move from, I think, going from valuation to pricing to modeling. Those are good things. Those are good things, and people shouldn't be afraid of it. But Fred, I think what taught me was just go back to your basic set of principles as an individual, and if you apply those principles in different roles, you'll do fine.
Fantastic. I'm seeing a question from Ronnie in the chat. With companies shifting back to in-person work, what data or feedback have you seen regarding how return to office mandates impact applicant pool diversity, particularly in terms of geographic reach and accessibility for underrepresented workers?
Yeah, a little bit. I think by one of the reasons, for example, opening up an office in Charlotte now gives an opportunity for Pacific Life to be on the east, on the west, and in between. So yes, I will not have the same level of representation from people from Wyoming, of course, that I might have had before. But those are really trade-offs. And at least what we have done is I call it an 80-80. We have basically 4 days a week in the office for basically 80% of our team. So we still have individuals that are remote. So we have roughly 20% of our individuals working remote in various skills and in areas that's maybe more difficult to have to acquire in an office. So it's still there, but I can appreciate how that might change. I just think you got to just weigh the pro and the con. I can tell you what has made Pacific Life, and I can tell you what has made my career has been working in an office, working with people, engaging with people, breaking bread with people, having the hallway chatter after the meeting, and with all due respect, you do not get that on a Zoom or Team. You don't. And I think you don't get the development as much. People may say you do, but it's hard. It's hard because, how much of development is, hey, let's go grab lunch. Let me give you some feedback on the presentation you just did. Right? I don't call up people and go, oh, let's schedule a lunch Teams call. It's just not as innate. And I don't think you get, it's harder to figure out culture. It's just harder. It's harder. It's not impossible. It's harder when you are remote. But I appreciate the flexibility. Look, I spend time in South Carolina. I spend time in Newport Beach, and I spent time on last year was on Delta Airlines. I traveled a lot. So, but that then becomes on me. Not everybody wants to do that. So it's a good question, and I would say work in progress, but it's something to be mindful of because I think you do have you do have a risk of losing that diversity because of not everybody wants to be in Omaha, Nebraska, or Newport Beach, California, or just Charlotte. And one of the benefits I had, Fred, who asked the question, we both had the benefit of is having lived in different countries, having lived in different cities, having worked in different cultures. You learn so much, and I think that is the richness of what you get. And I certainly want to make sure that the people that come after me get that same benefit.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that idea that it's about trade-offs, right? An organization's making a trade-off in that policy, and also I really appreciate that point about like the fact that if you're in community with people, the interactions can be organic, whereas you have to be really intentional about interactions in a remote environment. I'm seeing.
I'll give you one thing. I'll use an example. We had an employee was remote, lived in Ohio, and left us to go work for a company in Ohio. And I'll tell you, my first reaction was, while I'm sad to see that individual leave us, I'm happy for the individual because they are now working for a company that's in their town. And I think that is better for them as a person and in their growth, as much as I wish they would still be with us, but I would rather wish benefit for them. So that's what I think sometimes you gotta look at it from that perspective.
No, I can really appreciate that. I'm seeing
Hobbies.
a question. Yeah. So the hobbies that have impacted your leadership.
Well, I like to do two things a lot. Having lived in Minnesota off and on for 30 years. If you live in Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes, you have to get into boating, and I got into boating a long time ago. And I don't know how that translates to leadership, but it was a good way for me to relax. I guess maybe leadership. Try to teach 3 people how to water ski and wakeboard. Now, I did that as a dad, and that is an art and patience. Now in my older days, I've always enjoyed golf. And what I enjoy golf is twofold. One, I'm an average golfer. Let me just start with that. But when I'm playing golf, I'm so focused on hitting this silly white ball and putting in a hole after 4 shots that I forget about work. And sometimes it's not a bad thing to forget about work, right? Because you can always just have business on your mind. And I think it's important to just clear your mind of work. The other part of it is it's a great way to build relationships. So often, if I'm golfing on a work perspective, I don't like to take a golf cart. I like to walk, because then you can actually walk and engage and have that human element. And that's just an enjoyable time for me. So that's, I guess, my key.
Yeah, I really like that question. I think we have time for maybe one more question. I'm not seeing anything in the chat or a hand up. So is there one that came through? I'll ask one real quick.
Okay.
How can actuaries be great partners and kind of be go-to resources for finance leaders, especially in sort of an age of transformation, with whether it's AI, whether it's, societal trends, healthcare trends, things like that?
It goes back to tell me something. I want to hear from you. Give me some insight. Tell me what I should be doing differently. Don't be bashful. Don't, get back to that. I want to get, as I always say, if you were to look at majority, if I had to profile an actuary, I would say more introvert than extrovert. How do I get my introverted actuaries to just move a little bit towards the extrovert side? Because I want to hear from them. I want their input. It's a profession that I have a high degree of respect for. A lot of insights, you have that. I want to hear from you. And those actuaries that are willing to articulate and hear, and I have in my leadership, in the management committee that I'm a part of, we have 10 members of the management committee. 3 of them are actuary professionals. All 3 of them are wonderful colleagues and engaged. Our CEO's an actuary too, so which is not uncommon. But the place is give me the insights. Talk to me. Don't just sit in the corner and crank out reports. Share.
Love that. So grateful for your time this afternoon.
Super.
I'll pass it on to Jeff to close us out here.
Yeah. Appreciate the opportunity, and I wish everybody well in their continued career, and hopefully remembered a few things of what I shared. But if I could just sum it in the most simplistic way, is really be engaged and provide insights, and most importantly is influence people, influence decisions, influence people, because if you can influence decisions from the business side and you can influence people from their professional side, boy, I think people want to spend time with you. If you're doing neither, yeah, they'll meet you the first time, but you won't get the second.
Vibhu, thank you so much, man. This was amazingly insightful. For those who might have missed a portion of the conversation, yes, please, round of applause reactions for Vibhu's insights today. Thank you again. For those who might have missed a portion of today's conversation, we will make sure it gets loaded up on our YouTube channel. First part of next week. Give me a little bit of grace. Nana, thank you so much for leading this amazing conversation again as well. For those who don't know, Nana is IABA's Impact and Member Development Chairperson, so a volunteer for us. This is his brainchild to bring more executives into this space of intimacy where we can learn from one another and grow. So Nana, thank you so much. In March, we're going to have a bunch of great conversations. March 3rd, we're going to be having a going global conversation with the African Actuarial Development Academy. It's called Going Global. We'll have a conversation on March 23rd called Risk, Race, and Responsibility with Brian Johnson from Guy Carpenter. And then we'll have another coffee conversations on March 23rd with Renando from New York Life. So guys, we appreciate the conversation today. Be on the lookout for in your email. We're probably going to send out next week as well a post-event survey. If you're not growing, we got to grow, we got to do better. So we want your feedback on how we can make this better. So thank you guys so much. Again, be on the lookout for next week. If you missed any part of the conversation, we will have that up on your YouTube. Vibhu, Nana, thank you so much. You guys all have a great, amazing weekend. Talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody.